You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 498, our coverage of Chapter 22 of The Mandalorian, an episode that was entitled Guns for Hire, and an episode that's probably making the rounds right now on social media and just about everywhere else, because as I'll hold my comments in just a little bit for how I felt about it, but even the people that I think have been really positive and pro Mandalorian this season, given all the other stuff we've talked about and kind of how they've been trying to find their footing this season, I think some of them have felt like this was a wedge that kind of pushed people to one side, respectively. But I think some people have not really enjoyed the episode as much. So I don't want to go out and presume anything, but maybe the person with me tonight could be in that same camp. I don't know. We'll find out here in just a second. But Jonesy's with us tonight. Jonesy, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. This was a very interesting episode. I did not see it coming at all, out of left field. So it is very interesting. So I'm excited to talk to you about it tonight because it's curious. It's real curious. This is the first time I have ever only watched an episode of Bad Batch or Clone Wars or a movie or The Mandalorian or whatever, only one time.
Yeah. Now
that doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it in some ways, but I only watched it one time. It was just kind of a one-time watcher for me.
Well, not only did I watch it more than once, but I watched multiple parts over and over again. In short, I really enjoyed this episode because it is like quintessential Star Wars. As much as I totally get, like, I understand and I respect especially the respectful opinions that people have had, not the disrespectful ones. Because I mean, this is pure fodder for everybody that's out there anti-Disney.
Sure.
The fandom menace. I mean, this is red meat, right? But for me, and I posted this on Twitter today, like, it literally checked off every single box for me about what it is I like Star Wars and stuff that I enjoyed as a kid, as well as stuff that I enjoy now. And I'll get into the specifics, but there was a lot going on here. And just a quick shout out. I have not heard from the guys over at Blast Points, but this is the kind of content that their show is like founded on, right? Everything in this episode, I kept watching. I'm like, they're going to do an episode on that character. They're going to highlight that character, because this is kind of like, a lot of it was so 80s Star Wars, fun Star Wars, and being a kid Star Wars, action figure Star Wars, cartoon animation Star Wars. And I get where a lot of people are kind of like, hey, that's cool, but I don't really like mustard in my cereal, or I don't like stuff in my Mandalorian.
You never knew you needed Jack Black Star Wars.
Yeah, or Lizzo.
Or even Christopher Lloyd, I guess, for that matter.
Christopher Lloyd. And I had him down for Jar Sabath. And boy, was I wrong. That one came back and bit me. But
it's almost like they are never going to do Heir to the Empire.
You know what it is?
It's crazy that
they're
this
just
is maybe a possibility that they won't actually do Heir to the Empire.
They're stalling. That's all they're doing. They're buying their time and they're stalling. They really want to ramp this up and give it its proper time and do. And so, I mean, I get it, right? That's what I would do.
Right.
No,
I tell you what, we'll get into it here in just a minute. Just a quick reminder that we do have a really full slate of Star Wars Celebration episode or live streams for you guys to consume this coming weekend. 1 show on Friday, 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, and then 1 Monday evening to wrap the whole thing up. You're not going to want to miss any of them. Of course, Friday, we've got the studio showcase, so we expect to have some great trailers and announcement, big reveals potentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Saturday morning, Ahsoka. So we're going to get you an Ahsoka panel review, hopefully a trailer review first thing that morning too. So look for that one around 10 a.m. But you can find all of the details at cantinacast.com, cantinacast.com/YouTube to make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. You don't miss anything of what we're doing. We'll do a recap at the end of the day, each day as well. So you won't miss anything. Also, StarWars.com did announce that you can watch some of their live stream through their website, through the Star Wars Star Wars Cantina, the Star Wars YouTube channel as well.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's going to be a lot like the covers they've done in years past. You'll have the Celebration live stage where they do the interviews. They'll do select panels. So who knows what that actually means? They didn't tell us which ones. It was very vague. So again, we're going to do the best we can to keep up with all of it. We're hopefully going to get in touch with some folks, get some boots on the ground type of feedback as well. But it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. Something else you're not going to want to miss over on the YouTube channel is the new Jedi Novel Archive. Lauren has released her spoiler full review. So her full review of Lydia Kang's High Republic Cataclysm. So this is the latest book that just came out this week. So hot off the presses. It's already doing gangbusters over on the channel. So please go check that out. She has got a young reader book coming up next. I believe is it Quest for Reader or Quest for Planet
Hidden
X?
Planet or Planet X or whatever it is.
Something like that. She's got a whole slate of things built. I can hardly keep up with her schedule. She's always so on top of it. So thanks to Lauren. She's killing it. We're really super happy with everything that's going there. So awesome job there. And of course, as we get into Celebration, you are going to have a lot of questions. We're going to have a lot of questions. CantinaCast.com/question so we can get all those in. We'll make a show out of it. We'll have a good listener Q&A show. It's been way too long. It can be anything from Mandalorian, Bad Batch, anything that we find at Celebration, maybe some Skeleton Crew, maybe some Acolyte, maybe we'll get some news at Acolyte, whatever you guys on y'all's minds, let us know, CantinaCast.com/question, and we will put it in there. Remember, if you are a Patreon member, you are guaranteed to have your question answered no matter how many questions there are. So yours will rise to the top. So we'd invite you to go over to the Patreon website to check that out, CantinaCast.com/Patreon, if you want to make sure that your question is crucial. It's vital that everyone hear your voice, be able to ask this question to make sure we get this answered for you. Let us know. And while you're over there, you might take a look at some of the different tiers and maybe look at one of these that these fine folks have subscribed to. It's now part of the tribe members: Mike, Rob, Lauren, Dante, Risk, Justin Jackson, Sharkman, and Daz, Isabella, Uncle Leon, and Josh. And then, of course, the Delusions of Grandeur members, Rod and Kathy. Thank you all so much for all of your contributions to the show and your support. Once again, everything that you put into the show goes into our bank account, which goes back into the show. Full transparency around here. It has to go somewhere.
It's got to go somewhere.
But it goes right back into the show.
Yeah.
We don't
a lot
keep
of it's
it.
going to stickers for an event we've got.
A lot of it goes to stickers. Oh, and stay tuned for maybe some May the 4th Pete with y'all news coming up here pretty soon.
Yeah.
Definitely not spoilery.
That's not spoiler. Yeah, we got something planned for May the 4th, but more on that here after we get through Celebration, because that's going to take up a lot of our time.
And a real quick, while we have a moment here before we get started, we do have a live stream, of course, Sundays and Thursdays, of course, every day coming up here pretty soon. But Jonathan, Steph, obviously Subdued, Sky, Qui-Gon J, Riley, Derpy Entertainment, Miss Sunflower. Thank you all for showing up and being so lively in the chat already. We see you folks over in the background too. Please do come by and say hi. Let us know how you are doing, what your thoughts are. And tell us how much you love this episode.
Okay. Well, why don't you? I've got a long list of opening thoughts.
Always have a long list of opening thoughts.
No, but it's particularly long this time. So why don't you get yours out of the way if you've not already? Then I'll roll into mine.
Well, if my little headliner doesn't say it all, David Caruso as Din Djarin, and that's a CSI Miami reference for y'all if y'all not familiar with that show. Everybody knows who David Caruso is, right? Anyway, but very, very CSI, very. I won't spoiler with what you think it felt like, but this kind of noir drama, buddy cop almost type of thing. It was cool to see the dynamic between Bo and Din Djarin. I do like that. I'm a little confused at the kind of the reverse, all the kind of the hate on the droids all of a sudden again from Din Djarin, which seems to be escalating as the season goes on. I kind of get it with battle droids and things like that, but the rest of them, a little lost on that part of it. Of course, the end of this episode was really cool. We get to see the confrontation with the rest of her former team, Bo-Katan's former team, understanding where they're at with, not only what they're doing, but what their values are. It is interesting though that this group of people just kind of stands around. They don't seem super energetic about anything. Maybe throwing the baseball or the football, whatever they were doing kind of in the background, but they don't seem super energetic about all this unless it's Axe Woves for the most part. Axe is not the only one with like any real true passion going on here. So a little bit interesting. I really want to talk to you about the whole Darksaber transition here because it felt I just don't know if it's any better than what happened in Rebels. Like, I really don't. It feels like we found a loophole. Maybe Din found a loophole. And I mean, kudos, they all bought in. So I guess that's all that matters. But still, it kind of felt like a bit of a loophole here. But overall, I mean, it was an enjoyable episode. It wasn't a bad episode. It was just a little, it took you out of these moments with Jack Black. Jack Black's just this, when he's on screen, he has just so much personality. It's hard to contain him on screen. You know, he's just got so much of it. But he was actually pretty subdued in this. I thought his character was actually mildly amusing, I think, too. I think it was kind of cool bringing the amnesty program into that aspect as well. Seeing it on his chest. He has a little badge as well, just like Kane does as well. So I think some of those aspects were pretty interesting. And the Grogu moments were, were cute. But again, Grogu taking very much another backseat, type of moment, even though he's much closer to being a master than Anakin ever was, I guess. So he's well on his way.
Whoa. Man, shots fired.
So anyway, we'll kind of pause there. We'll let's get your thoughts out of the way. I'll go get a new cup of coffee.
Crack my knuckles here. Get ready.
Yeah, I'll get a pillow out.
Yep, grab pillow, grab blanket, folks.
Just text me when you're done.
Papa's going to tell you a story here. So I enjoyed this episode, like I said at the very beginning, for a lot of different reasons. First off, I definitely picked up on all of the buddy cop drama, CSI stuff. But my thing was, the entire time I'm watching this is like Mulder and Scully, right? This is one of those side non-monster of the week type things where they're going out and doing some serious investigation as FBI investigators. And I just picking up on that vibe the whole time. I really enjoyed, excuse me, I really enjoyed the chemistry that is continuing to grow. And all joking aside about the, shipping them and all that stuff, I think that this is a good pairing. Like Bo-Katan's character, along with Din Djarin's character, she's really starting to bring him out of his shell. And he's starting to make comments. Like he's almost like joking in this episode. I want to get to that in a second. Yeah, that's what I posted on Twitter today, which is a picture of Mulder and Scully just with the helmets. So I do want to talk about Din Djarin's one-liners, because this was I want to say it's almost uncharacteristic of him, because I don't know that we've really had it in the way that we did in this episode. And I'm going to credit that to Bo-Katan and what she's doing to him to kind of help him come out of his shell, come out of his armor, so to speak, in a lot of ways. So on that, so Grogu, by the way, this was a great episode. I know he was in the background and there was really nothing about his mythology, but this dude had people hand feeding him. He was being scratched and pet on his head the entire time like a cat. And then he got freaking knighted at the very end of all this. Like he's an actual knight of some, I don't know, I guess interstellar non-conformist society or whatever. But I thought that was really great. He had the flips going on, him waving goodbye at the very end as Dad was taking him away. I thought was just like, I was smiling. I loved all of the Grogu part. So if you're a Grogu fan, I mean, you were probably gushing. Lauren was texting already like at 6:30 about the Grogu parts. So she's not here with us tonight because I think she's working or something, but she really enjoyed all of those as well. I do get this as kind of so here's where I felt like on the side quest piece of it. A lot of people have been saying, hey, this felt like a side quest. This felt like a mission of the week kind of thing, really out of character from where we were kind of thinking we were going to go, especially on the cusp of only 2 more episodes left, especially when we were about to allegedly go into, Mandalore and reclaim it. And then suddenly we get this. And what is this, right? This feels jarring. It feels like we shouldn't be here right now. This should have been something that was in the first part of the season. So to what I would say to that is, even though I know in the past we've had episodes like this and we've had side quests like this, there was a self-awareness to this one. Like in past episodes, Bo-Katan and or Din were just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess I have to go here. And they just ran along with it. But Bo-Katan, Katie Sackhoff, does a really good job of almost being the audience through this episode. You can see her frustration. You can see the like, my goodness, how long is this going to take? Why are we having to do this, right? So I like the fact that even though, yes, they were doing it, there was a self-awareness from the characters and certainly on Jon Favreau's part as he was writing this. So for me, that tells me that this was calculated. This was not a throwaway episode. This wasn't something that, was filler or whatever term you want to use. Now, where does it end up? We can talk about that a little bit later, but there was a lot in here I think is going to play, and especially at the very end. I mean, they are almost signaling 100% that these characters or this particular planet or the events that happen. Maybe it's the commissioner, or what is his name? The guy that Christopher Lloyd's character.
Yeah, Commissioner Hellgate.
Commissioner Hellgate, right. Maybe it's Commissioner Hellgate, maybe it's the Ugnaughts, maybe it's the droids, but there's a lot of things in here that could lead into possible things later down the road once you start thinking about it, speculating, hypothesizing. So again, the self-awareness, I did enjoy that. Okay, so let me talk about Din Djarin's one-liners. So this was almost like on the level of Arnold Schwarzenegger in any one of his 80s movies, right? He had the "You had me at battle droids," which I think was the best line for me in this episode from him. It was so good. It's so on character. It's very clear that he has a bone to pick still with these things. You think about the flashback. These are the B2s are the ones that killed his parents. They invaded his city. He's got every reason to be upset with these guys. And Bo-Katan even calls him out later on. She says, "I think you're taking this a little personal, right? I think you're taking this personally." So it's very clear to her that he's signaling that there's something more to this than just, "Oh, I don't like droids." I think he's come around to droids. I think in general, I think you made a good point. It does feel like he was getting to a point where all droids were okay, maybe not B1s, B2s, or Clone War era droids. But I think the fact that they were associated with these, and this was all kind of ex-Imperial that had been reconstructed or rehabbed or whatever, I think for him, it was like, yeah, I'm not really, like, I'm okay with droids, but this has got a lot of red flags here. So I think that's where we were seeing that.
There's a lot of residual, almost like PTSD trauma type of experience, I think is where a lot of that was coming from.
Yeah. He has a line when he's talking about how that he says, "I'm just pointing it out. Right? It's almost like a comical little line when they're in the elevator and he's coming off the elevator. Mm-hmm. Again, nothing that I would ever expected Bo or Din to actually say. There's another line he says, "So do I." He says, "What's your point?" Right? It's just that banter that we're starting to get between him and Bo-Katan that I think is what I'm saying. I think is him come out of his shell. There was a RoboCop moment where he said, "You're coming with us." That was right out of RoboCop's. And then when he was kicking the droids down, right?
That was just funny.
I mean, it was like he was taking out that PTSD or the transgressions that the droids had passed on upon him so many years ago. It reminds me of another, like there's those, they're fake and phony videos, but you can see them out there where they're like kicking these AI robots around like in present time and they get back and they move, right? And they're just kind of on their mission. But there's a lot to be said here about like droid slavery and droid abuse and where that's going. And I think that's where Bo-Katan was coming from about why didn't you have to kind of kick them kind of thing. There you go. Gary's got it. I couldn't remember the name of it, but yeah, kicking droids are like the Boston Dynamics videos. Go YouTube Boston Dynamics videos. They're not real. I think they have a couple that may be real, but most of them are fake, but they're really done really well. So it looks like they're purposely hurting these droids. I know that sounds malicious and cruel, but it's not. It's supposed to be kind of funny. Okay. A couple other things. Welcome back, Matthew Wood. Like Matthew Wood is the voice of the B1 battle droids. I don't know. Like, it seems like he's got work forever. Like, even I would never have thought we would still be having battle droids this many years later after the Phantom Menace, but here we are. They're still showing up, and this dude's getting employed, even if he's coming in and just saying a few lines. But anytime we hear Matthew Wood kind of do that, I really love it.
He still works for Lucasfilm, so
yeah. And then the other thing was just this was like a droid lover's eye candy. I went and looked. The reason I watched a lot of this over, I was trying to go through and count how many different droids there were. And with the exception of like the medical droid, Imperial probe droid, whatever, I would say a large part of all the droids that we've ever seen in Star Wars, in some form or in some color variation, were in this freaking episode. Like even like the droid bar itself had just about everything. Even what's the one from Galactic Tours?
From Star Tours?
From Star Tours, yeah. You remember him?
Oh gosh, yeah, the original, yeah.
I mean, there's a table of them at the bar, right? So I mean, this was really kind of an ode to droids in Star Wars, and I know there are a lot of people that are droid fans, and I've got a couple of them that are mutuals on Twitter, and they've been gushing about how many variations that we got to see. But it was just really neat that they had that many. Now, the only downside, or I guess the only feedback I would say, is if you go back and watch those episodes, especially when they're kind of running through the streets there on the planet, they repurpose a lot of the same droids.
Right.
It's the same ones, the same shots. They just moved them over and, to kind of give you the illusion. Of course, when you're watching the episode, you don't catch that. Them. But, if you're going frame by frame, yeah, you're going to see a lot of the same droids just relocated to give you the feel that was huge.
I did like the backstory. Like when you walk into the bar, you get the idea that they're, you're going into a bar, so they're getting intoxicated, right? That's kind of the first thing you jump to. But really, it was a lubrication to help them prolong their life. It was very altruistic. Like the story that the bartender told was just, oh, you
Yeah.
just felt bad, like your whole demeanor just melted away.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then the other thing I would say is I think there were moments in here, and maybe we'll find out someday. There were moments in here where I think they used the volume, but I thought they did a pretty good job of that. I think in the city scenes when they're running around chasing folks,
Yeah,
the lighting was really good. I love the backgrounds that they used. So I guess we'll find out. But there were some people that were posting saying, I guess confirming, whether they know or not, I don't know, but they were confirming that a lot of the shots that we saw in the city were the volume. And so I felt like they did a good job of that. It does feel like that technology is getting better.
But it makes sense because they could CGI everything else in, so you're not bound by the smaller space. That's what Obi-Wan Kenobi suffered with, having too many real people confined into a smaller space. These, you can expand it digitally to completely blow out your space and make it seem bigger than it actually is. And it was very Attack of the Clones-ish too, right? It felt a lot like Coruscant with Obi-Wan and Anakin chasing down Zam Wesell. It just had those kind of vibes to it. Things getting thrown out of windows. It was a lot. It was fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the last thing, I promise, is just on the Darksaber. Like, I'm with you. Like, it felt like this was probably the most obvious way that she could have gotten a Darksaber, but I don't think any of us really even had it on our list because it felt too obvious, and it felt like something that would have been done, right after it happened. Like, the minute he woke up, like, hey, I really don't want this burden, right, of the sword. I've already tried to give it to you once. He already at one point felt like she was at least a rightful leader. Maybe he cares more than he didn't at the time. I don't know, but it felt like he would have just given to her because of the technicality. And I think we ruled that out because it was like, oh, no, that's too obvious. It's too simple. It can't work that way. And yet it does. And so,
well, once again, when they kind of telegraph it to you, I guess you should just take it at face value.
it's going to happen.
Right.
So now, do I hate it? No, because you know what? We've gotten that out of the way.
He had finally came to the moment. He's like, you know what? I need to profess my love. I need to do it in front of all of these people. I've thought about this for a long time. I finally have the perfect thing. I need to make sure everyone knows how heroic she is and that she saved me and that I'm
in a lot of ways
confessing my true love. And in so many different ways. And this Darksaber really belongs to her. So there you go. It was really just his profession of love.
Yep. So, I guess we'll see, right? At least, like I said, I was trying to say, I think it gets it out of the way now, at least. So we don't have to belabor it. We don't have to talk about it anymore. We just accept the fact that she's now the leader. And there may be folks that are not, right? There may be folks that are, I think, who was it? Qui-Gon Jinn just said, I don't think this resolves the Darksaber issue. The armorer is going to have a serious problem with this. She might.
I don't know. I mean, she might. She told her to take her helmet off too. So at this point, I don't know what to expect. Yeah.
Well, and it's that and the fact that I don't know how much, like, how much does the Darksaber mean to her, right? Or, if she truly feels that she's the rightful leader of Mandalore because she's seen the Mythosaur, I think that probably supersedes this whole Darksaber thing, right? Like, what does it matter at this point? I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but I think getting by on a technicality is probably okay. Whereas if she had not seen the Mythosaur and the armor felt or didn't feel as though she was the rightful ruler of Mandalore, then I think that would have been a different story. She certainly would still be in character to say, no, that doesn't count. But bigger things have happened, I guess is what I'm saying. So it's probably tempered it for her.
But I am very curious about the armorer's perspective on the Darksaber now that she's had a bit of a shift in what she believes of Bo bringing people back to the covert. The more I went back and rewatched that, those lines in that episode, and I'm really curious. Like, she goes, go back and bring the exiled ones to us, and almost like we're going to, like, it's not enough for the few. Like, we need to re-indoctrinate everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I thought about it, like, man, I wonder if this is. It's probably not, but there was a part of me that just is like just kind of pinging in the back of my brain, like there's something that the armor is not telling us that she's got up her sleeve that she wants to do. Yeah. Well, this is what it really means to walk the way, and she's just going to use Bo to basically facilitate, the bringing of everyone together. But it'd be interesting. I don't think it'll go that route, but there's a part of me it's hard to ignore that too.
Going to the chat, Gary says Bo rides the Mythosaur, and no one will talk about the Darksaber. And that's kind of what
that's where I was early on. If you got the Mythosaur, like, really, why do you even care about the Darksaber?
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe. Dude, this is like one of my oldest friends here from like 30 years ago. Juan says, hey, Juan. He could have given the Darksaber to her earlier, but he feels it's more symbolic that he presents it to her in front of her fellow Mandos. Plus,
Right.
kind of a soft redeems the way that she got it before. So I like that. I like the fact that maybe he was waiting, happenstance, but nonetheless, yeah, it's probably more impactful, more significant that he does that in front of the people that deserted her and felt like she wasn't worthy of it, or was the cause of all their problems and went on their own. You know
Well,
what this did confirm
what
also?
they say though is the waiting
What?
is the hardest part.
There's a song about that.
There is Tom Petty.
Yeah. What this did confirm for me too, also, was that I know we poo-pooed on it, and I'm not really trying to harp on this, but the idea that it was, it was the Night Owls that were now hired by Moff Gideon, like that didn't happen. Although I got scared though.
I thought for a minute, when they avoided going out there, I was like, oh no, that's going to be the big reveal at the end of it. Because I kept spoiler free for this episode, but I had heard this morning, because I didn't get to watch it till I got home from work. I kept hearing that there's a reveal at the end. There's a big to do at the end, and I was like, okay, it's all right. I couldn't think of a lot of things at what it was, but when they avoided going there, like right away, and had to go on the side, quote unquote side quest type of thing, I was like, oh no, please don't tell me it's Moff Gideon that has linked up with these guys. That wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. But who knows? Yeah,
I was really worried. Like my heart sunk, and I was like, "Oh crap! What do you mean they're, why is Axe flying around in an Imperial, warship? That's not going to be good." But yeah, luckily it didn't turn out that way. So
but that's the one they stole, right? That's the one they stole from the officers on Trask. So it made sense that was still the one that they were flying around.
By the way, I updated the wiki or the Wikipedia entry today on Trask, so you guys are welcome.
We'll fix it later.
Oh, no, wait, it was a hot mess. All right, another story for another day. Okay, well, let's get into our kind of step through breakdown of this, and it opens up with this kind of, I'm going to call it a Romeo and Juliet story between Quarrens and Mon Calamaris. And so, for anybody that's not aware, like the relationship between these two species, imagine like a Wookiee and a Trandoshan falling in love. It's the same thing. Like this is not heard of, right? They've been at war for years.
Kind of just as gross.
It's just as gross, right? For a lot of reasons. But again, so going through my list of what makes Star Wars to me, what do I like about Star Wars? I hate to say it, but and I know this is going to sound cheesy, and you can roll your eyes and whatever. We'll cut this part out if you make any rude comments. But this was kind of like the love story. This was the romance part of the thing, right? Was it well acted? I don't know, maybe not. But is it believable? Probably not, because it's kind of gross, like you said. But you know what? They were in love, and they couldn't be together. It was an unrequited love, or not. It's not unrequited. It was just a forbidden love, right? Because it was Torrens and Torrens.
Torrens.
Wow, where am I? But Quarrens and Mon Calamaris. But I did kind of enjoy this, and so by the way, I did enjoy also, like, it was really cool to see a Quarren ship. Like, we've not really seen many of these things.
Right.
And just the way, like,
coolest
she was in the
coolest
fish tank
captain's
at first.
chair. Yeah, coolest captain chair apparatus and everything probably ever, right?
Right. And they just come by and throw a couple goldfish in there to feed the captain whenever she's hungry, and then it drains out. She's sitting there. I mean, it was awesome stuff.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But again, this was more about hope. I mean, this is more about people can make changes. They could be different. They can make better choices, and they can bring. It was signaling what we expect to see later on, right? With the Mandalorians, right? We have two different factions. They're not supposed to get along. They have completely different belief systems. So they think, but somehow they find a way to come together, right? And they can bridge this gap, even if they're not allowed to. At some point, it will all start to work out. It'll all start to come through to fruition. And it was interesting, though, that the captain's words of a, oh gosh, what was she? It was a fling, like a childish fling or something like that. I was like, ouch, man.
Yeah.
Although the kid, the male was definitely, the Mon Cal definitely came across as very immature, and like he was a 20-year-old prince just kind of falling in love for the first time with this beautiful tentacly foreign captain with their own ship.
She was cute. I liked her little, like, mandibles or teeth in the front.
Yeah, but the tentacles like caressing it.
His face. I don't know. I could get used to it. I'm kind of weird though. So I'm gonna the comments. Fish Love says Juan. Gary says Romeo and Sushiette. That might
like
be the
that.
winner. Tentacle Kisses from Qui-Gon J. Miss Sunflower says Squid Love. Yeah, I mean, it was weird, but that's pretty much all of Star Wars. Yeah, she called it a childish fling, which I was like, ow, sorry,
that
bro,
was
that probably hurt.
brutal.
Yeah. But okay, so the story here is the Night Owls were hired by the prince's father to bring him back. And, it was interesting too. Like the Quarren was like, can we blow this thing out of the water? And they're like, no, this ship's bigger than ours. And then she gets on the air and she's like, oh, she was so, subservient and passive with them, which I thought was kind of cool. Cause that's in character of a Quarren. They can't be trusted. They're dirty, rotten people, honestly.
Wow, man, you're so judgmental. She was just trying to get by and take care of her crew. She thought they were the Empire.
Yeah, well, they haven't done a lot for they haven't. It's like the Trandoshans. They've not done a lot to make them the good guys ever. Like we talked about skiers being like the exception for that.
Yeah,
but Quarrens, I mean, they were notoriously in Star Wars as the evil aliens. I'm trying to think of a good. Well, there was a Quarren Jedi too, but yeah, few and far between.
Yeah, you are right though. Mon and Cal were always considered the hero
the good
of
guys.
that planet. Yeah, rather than the Quarrens, which were always the dirty villains.
Yep. So she surrenders. She surrenders him and says, "No, sorry, you got to go. We'll figure this out later," kind of thing. And we get that little comment from what was her name? I forget her name now. The female.
Axis
Mandalorian.
Oh, his second in command there. That's
Sasha
Casca.
Casca, right? Says Mandalorians are earnable. All it takes is a few credits. So, and this is no different than what Din Djarin was doing when we first met him at the beginning of Mandalorian, right?
Right.
Whatever to make a buck.
Yeah, I mean, they're loyal to whoever pays them, and the job's a job. You finish the job. Yeah, there's no hard feelings here.
Oh, I like what With the Deagle says. I feel like Childish Fling was just meant to hurt him enough to make him leave. See, look at it. With the Deagle gets it. Like trying to perpetuate the love story there. She was doing it to make it easier on him to leave. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about. So we'll get into Plaisir 15 and the events and all that. But I want to just quickly talk about this because it's a very unique. Like they gave us. This is where I said they were setting something up. Like we're coming back to Plaisir 15. I guarantee it. They gave us so much about this planet. It was almost like a Wikipedia entry just being splat right on the screen for us. Like they gave us everything about it. So it's not part of the New Republic. And no one works there. All the droids do everything. This is where I felt like this was right out of like iRobot. If you remember that Will Smith movie, where the droids or the robots did all the work, and that the humanity could then just go on and be, artists and live their lives and whatever else, right? They didn't have to do all the hard labor stuff. They were the Outer Rim's last remaining direct democracy. They mentioned that at some point. Again, we talked about the droids everywhere. It's ruled by a duchess, right? That was Lizzo who played that, which I don't think she did a bad job. Like the people that are saying that Star Wars, like she did a horrible acting job. I'm like, have you watched Star Wars? Like arguably even the actors from episode 4, some of them were not that good, guys. I'm sorry. Well, they got better.
These characters were supposed to be over the top though. They were just supposed to be way just bigger than life with both and that's the only reason why these two characters worked with Jack Black and Lizzo, just thematically between them as actors, if you want to call Jack Black an actor. But it's just that dynamic. The only reason why it works is because this place is just so extravagant, so lavish, so absurd in so many different ways. That's why it works, right? So I didn't have a problem with it. It was, I mean, their acting is very wooden, I guess, to an extent, very classic Star Wars in that regard for many respects. But just the way that they were just so over the top with all of it, that's just their culture too. Yeah. And so I thought they played right into all of that, and it was the personification of it.
Right. No, and I agree. Like, and also they are the 1%.
When you live at Epcot, I mean, you just got to figure that you're going to act that way.
I've seen Epcot. People were calling it Tomorrowland.
Yeah, Tomorrowland was another one.
There's another one. Yeah, but they're the 1%ers, so they're not in touch with reality in a lot of ways. Right. And I think we were seeing that through the characters. So I thought Lizzo did a fine job. Like, she's not getting an Emmy, right? But did she do any harm? No, I don't think so. Not for. I mean, who are we to judge that character? That's the character that was written, and She may have played it exactly like Jon Favreau wanted. Sorry if you didn't like that.
I have a feeling this is exactly what they wanted. I mean, it makes way too much sense for it not to be exactly what they asked for.
And then as far as Jack Black, so I will go on record as saying he is, like, in my opinion, one of the best actors ever. What he does and I know he can be a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
He can be a whole lot, almost too much at times, which I think is why he did really well on like a Nacho Libre and some of these other crazy movies that he's done. But when he wants to act, he can. He's similar to me, like with Robin Williams. Robin Williams was capable of going to the far extremes of emotion and acting in comedy. And I think Jack Black has it. Where Jack Black has worked, I think, more recently is kind of bringing that in and toning it down. He has the ability. There's a couple roles where he's played very serious roles that have been very poignant, very sweet roles. So I will say this. I do love Jack Black. And I don't think he's ever made a bad movie in his mouth or in his career ever. So now that I've said that and professed my love for him, I thought he did a good job. Like, he did rein it in. Like, it felt like when you would normally expect Jack Black to go over the threshold and break that and go into that next phase,
he didn't.
He never did it.
Yeah,
he told that line. I mean, he came really close at times.
He was just waiting. You were waiting for that shoe to drop, right?
Yes.
All right, come on, Jack, do it, man. You're gonna do it. We know you're gonna do it. No, I'm gonna chill. I'm gonna be all right.
And I felt like that would have been, had he done it, then I would be the first one to say, okay, maybe that doesn't feel like, quote, Star Wars, because it does now feel like it's too much into the realm of a Jack Black comedy or whatever, right? I mean, what
was important about that, though, that was the dynamic with him and Lizzo, because Lizzo would be the one to kind of cut some of that short, and then he would almost be subservient to her in that regard. Oh, I know, my love. And a little of that spousal bickering, a little bit of like, you're embarrassing me in front of our company.
Right.
But he wouldn't do it because he's just so, I don't know, he's just so in love with her, I suppose. But it was Lizzo, it was that dynamic that I think helped keep that edge just a step away so Jack Black didn't go over the edge. I'm not saying that Jack Black didn't do it himself, but I think the way they portrayed and wrote the characters and wrote those scenes made it so it didn't feel like it was going to go that far over, and it still made sense and it still worked.
Yep. And by the way, so it was the Duchess. I don't think we ever got her name, unless I missed that. I saw her listed as the Duchess, but
I think that's all it was. Yeah.
And then we had Captain Bombardier.
Yeah, Bombardier.
Bombardier.
Yeah, Bombardier, sure. I believe.
Yeah, I'm going to say Bombardier because that's how we say it here in the old good US of A. But so those characters, I mean, again, I for who they were, what they were, it was fine. I didn't have a problem with it. So I think we are going to see some of that a little bit later. Now, the one key thing away,
but hold on, but why? So why? Why Plaza 15 and not Navarro?
That's a good point. I think Navarro could have been easily this planet.
No, I mean,
the very end of it, when she says,
for them to find them here, I'm totally cool with all that. I'm just like, why would we come back here versus instead of going back to Navarro?
Yeah. So we can get there now.
I don't see why not.
Yeah, so we could come. So why would we come back here? So Hellgate is one of them, right? What was he saying there at the very? Let me go. I got to get to my notes. I have my notes. Can we just wait? Because I got this at my bottom and I don't know where they are now.
Fine.
Hold on.
Well, this is bad TV. Come on, just.
Okay. Well, now I got to find where I was in my other train of thought. So this TV is getting even worse now. So.
I'm sorry, everyone.
No, you're fine. So but the idea that they would help recognize Mandalore as a sovereign nation again. I think that
is a big one. Yeah,
that's going to be a big one later. Like, that feels almost like season 3, maybe even past that. I don't know, because they've got a lot to do to get to the point where they go back to the New Republic and say we are not the same people we were, and we have this co-sponsoring party entity, whatever, that's going to help us do that, right? That's probably, and that may be all.
I just viewed that as the only reason why they would do this mission. That's like when you talked about before in the opening where it's not a side quest. We had to have this reason to go and do all that. I disagreed with all of that until this moment where they actually gave you the care. I did like that Bo-Katan was like the audience in this case of saying, well, why are we doing this? This is dumb. We need to get to the action. We need to get straight to the job that we need to do. Time is short, right?
Yeah.
But when they said that, it made a whole lot more sense. And I was able to get on board more so with the premise of why we were doing this and why it was important to see this all the way through, because there was a gigantic carrot within galactic politics in that respect, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
In order for recognizing Mandalore and to legitimize it, because that is critical. It's critical in the grand scheme of the galaxy. Is it important to Mandalorians in general?
Probably not right now.
Maybe
No.
not, right?
Yeah.
But Bo-Katan, again, is trying to see the bigger picture. And so I think that was very important for her to be able to recognize that. And then they're very smart on their part to say, what could we possibly give a Mandalorian, right? Well, if they think that we've heard rumors, we think Mandalore's, kind of coming back. You guys are doing pretty all right. So, what if we were in your corner? So that made a lot more sense. I just don't know that we have to go back to Plaisir to do that. But will we go back and revisit it at some point? I think that's on the table. Yeah.
Yeah. Just one thing that came to mind. I know I said it later, but I was thinking too, like if he does pursue the IG-11 and they talked about, those droid parts are gone, can't find them anymore. I don't know. Presumably this could be a place. They seem to have a lot of droids, data droids that are still in service that served the Empire at one point. So maybe he comes back here for the purposes of finding the pieces that he needs to put, IG-11 back together.
Yeah, true. He brings the Anzellans back from Navarro. They go shopping, maybe bring a few Jawas, see what they can find too.
Yeah.
Pelimoto can come out there.
Okay, you're getting all right.
Find
Let's
her.
just stop.
Maybe she'll see what droids are like to date now. I don't know.
Oh boy. Okay, so we got a lot on Plaisir 15, not Concordia, by the way. So in the trailers and all that, I was thinking, oh, that's Concordia, or it's one of the Mando moons or planets. But no, wasn't that?
I loved that Bo-Katan and Din were introduced like they were both of Concordia, like they were a couple.
Yeah.
Not that they were like Bo-Katan of Clan Kryze of whatever, and then Din Djarin of this of that. Like no, they were like married already.
Yeah. And so we get the story where he was ex-Empire. He was put through the rehab program. They assigned him to this planet to help rebuild that planet. And, they fell in love. But because he's now, in a relationship with her, they can't have a military presence. And so they have to hire. I mean, there seems like a lot of red tape and bureaucracy here, and that's probably part of it. But they can't have like a military. So they have to hire people. And those people can't really technically be in the premises. They've got to be outside. And so we get it, right? That's kind of the background there. So this all makes sense, I guess, from the perspective of we need somebody to bring in as, quote, Mandalorians who, because weapons are the religion, they technically can come in here and we can technically then ask them to do this little mission for us kind of thing. But I think at the same time, like the only, I guess, loophole or thing that had me scratching my head was, okay, I get they probably had a tractor beam. That makes sense, right? If a ship can have a tractor beam, a freaking planet can have a tractor beam. So get over it. So they pulled the ship in, they land, and then, but why did they, this is where I was like, why did they have to go into the shuttle? Why could they have jetpacks just fly from there over to Axe and whatever?
It's a long way. They've run out of fuel. We saw that back on
right.
that dump of a desert planet with all the dragons and crocodile turtles and everything.
Yeah, yeah. So, but that was the only one that was like, okay, whatever. They get into there, and so they end up going through the Tomorrowland, or what would you call it?
Yeah, Epcot. Yeah, Tomorrowland works too. Yeah.
Yep.
It was a cool tube, though. Actually, the city was really absolutely beautiful. I mean, the design of it was absolutely very inspired in some ways by Mandalore a little bit, but just the domed paradise idea, the railways, the tubes, the whole culture was just one of extravagance and spare no expense type of things. It was like very much like Jurassic Park, when you first intro and everything is so shiny and new, and it just feels glorious, right?
Yeah, and I think they were trying to show, like, because they were not a democracy and because they were, they had droids, were doing all the labor and the stuff no one likes to do, that they were able to prosper as a society in ways that other civilizations and cultures can't. So I think that was the point of that. There was so they get there.
No, Jack Black or the Bombardier says it perfectly. Joining our opulence. I mean, that's really what this was.
And opulence being like sucking from secretions from this creature. Did you see that?
Yeah.
So they have this creature.
Enjoy our secretions. I was like, no, thank you.
A hard pass. It was like a creature in a fishbowl, and it was secreting gook out of tubes, and they were all just like a hookah lounge, just sucking on it.
Delicacy in some places, I suppose. But it felt this is a little spicy here, so it felt a little more like hedonism in some ways than anything else.
Yeah.
with just the extravagance and you could do whatever you want because you don't have to worry about working and everything else. So,
right. Yeah.
this is paradise.
Yeah. It is kind of paradise there. Oh, let's see. Okay. So they basically said, we got a droid problem. And this is where we first get Grogu, she's like, come here. And he's like, he doesn't take the strangers very well. All she had to do was dangle that little fish. And he did the flip. We joked about this where they're just chucking that doll and filming it.
This one still looks way better than what he did in the other episode a few episodes ago, though.
Yeah.
It was a good flip.
It was a better flip.
It was.
But yeah, they've got a plight where they want Bo and Din to go investigate the reprogram Imperial droids that are malfunctioning across the city. If they do this in return, they'll allow them to go meet up with the Mandalorians that they've hired that are sitting outside their, city limits or whatever it is. So,
right.
Yeah. So there you go. That's how we get our little side quest, X-Files mission of the week kind of thing. And so we're introduced to Christopher Lloyd. Again, I'm still upset. Not Jorah Sabayoth, but a character by the name of Commissioner Hellgate, who we find out at the very end, is part of the Separatists. Now, the only question I had here, and it's not feedback because I have not had a chance to really even think about this because we're doing this the day of. I haven't seen a lot of good posts either about this, but why? Like, what was his point? Like, what was he trying to do? Was he just trying to
I don't know.
Long live, Count Dooku kind of thing? Long live the Separatists? Was it pride? I didn't understand the motive behind this.
He just did not like Bombardier. He just did not like him. He was an ex-Imperial. You can't trust him. There's no rehabilitating that. It was just this deep. He felt like it was just a complete. Because he was fine with droids, I think, in general, but he was doing this to sabotage him specifically as a leader. There's no reason why an ex-Imperial who has committed such atrocities should be in this position, right? And if he was a separatist too, right? Hellgate was. So from a separatist point of view, you lost the war to the Republic, which became the Empire. This guy was an Imperial lackey, and now then they lost, and you're going to install him in power. So if you think about it, just that transition of events, that series of events from his perspective, things have been on the down. They probably thought things were fine. He may have things are perfect here. We're okay, and then we put him into place. And I think he might be a little bit jealous. I think he has a little bit of a crush on Lizzo, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
the
maybe.
Duchess. I'm sorry. So
Duchess Lizzo. How about that? We'll just go with both of them.
Yeah, Dutch Liz. Yeah. So I think he had he idolized her. He later on he clearly has her up on a pedestal. Milady. And it is very very formal, but it was very much to where it was a very pedestal. Like she just can't be up high enough. She represents everything that's pure and wonderful about their culture and their people, and he feels like this slumlord has moved into the penthouse and is not it just doesn't belong there, and so he's going to do whatever he can to try to knock him down that peg to get him out and see if she'll realize that this is what you wanted. Well, it's not working, so you're out too.
Okay, so I was in full disclosure, I was singing About Damn Time by Lizzo when you first started talking there. Are you saying that he was sabotaging his work? Is that what you were saying? Because remember, yes. Black's character was saying, "Oh, I did all the work and I checked it. I checked it 3 times or whatever he was saying there."
Yeah.
Are you saying Hellgate was sabotaging that work because he didn't really like him and
yes.
maybe even had a crush on Duchess Lizzo?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, he was sabotaging Bombardier's work for the rehabilitation specifically to get him out.
Okay, I like that because that makes more sense too. And again, I apologize because this is it's not even been 24 hours yet. So that makes more sense too because at the very end, he does seem remorseful. Like he seems like ashamed of himself, right?
Only that he got caught.
Well, I don't know about that, but
that's exactly why.
No,
he was
there's
ashamed
more
that
to it too. He could have a heart. Not everybody's that cynical. See, they wouldn't. Here's the thing. I think they're going to come back to him.
Let's look at his
He's going to be a good guy at some point. Or he's going to. So you don't get Christopher Lloyd to come in and play this character.
Not everybody is going to have a redemption arc.
I'm not saying he has to be redeemed, but I feel like he has something of value because you don't get Christopher Lloyd to come in. And I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe people are knocking on his door at this point because the guy's like 89 years old or whatever it is, right? No offense to him, but he's a prominent actor. He's certainly capable of doing more than what he did in this episode. Because he was pretty tame in terms of what he did, right? But they did leave it open. They're like, oh, well, you're going to go to the moon of whatever it is in my notes here. later down the road, and it was almost like they were setting that up, like we're going to visit him again. So I'm saying he doesn't have to be redeemed, but it does feel like he's going to serve a purpose at some point. And I think somebody put it in the chat here too. Gary said Christopher Lloyd was cast for Ahsoka. Sneak peek intro here.
I don't remember hearing that. There were rumors like around this time last year. There were Christopher Lloyd was cast for something. I think people thought it was Ahsoka, but I think it was actually Mandalorian. So I don't know that there's actually any connection with Ahsoka at all.
Yeah,
I think that may have just been rumor from around March or April last year.
Look at this. With the Eagles coming in hard again. Commissioner Hellgate looks like he's going back to the future. Good reference. He also could be force sensitive, huh?
Yeah, well, he's in exile, just like Luke, right? There's a lot of parallels all of a sudden.
Yeah, he was looking for a flux.
Pissed at Anakin for all the things that he did wrong. So, I mean, he's basically Luke Skywalker.
At least Luke Skywalker, maybe more. Okay. So maybe
he'll still become Jurassic.
Oh man, don't give me hope, Jonesy, because I'm gonna ride that one to my deathbed here. So
gave you an out.
Yeah. All right. So then he teases the button, right? Like I've got this, and
I love it.
It's like so cheesy, right? It's a big red button, like Ren and Stimpy. Don't press the red button reference.
I just kept waiting for him to push it and say that was easy.
That was easy. But it was a button that, allegedly if he pushed it, then all the droids would shut down. And this would be catastrophic for the society because now suddenly, oh my gosh, we're going to have to wash dishes and wipe our behinds or whatever these droids are doing for them. And this becomes, that's of course a ploy. It becomes something a little bit later that turns out not to be the case. He says he's willing to help them find the rogue droids, but my hands are tied. I really don't know where the rogue droids are. However, if you go down to the basement of the Alamo or down into the bowels of this planet, what the heck was the name of this planet now? Plazir 15s or yeah.
Yep.
If you go down to the bowels of Plazir 15, you're going to find the Ugnaughts because that's where everybody seems to keep the Ugnaughts. I don't know what it is. Maybe they smell like pork, but
wow, that is offensive.
Well, they're pigs. I don't know.
But
what you want to say.
He knew they weren't going to talk to him though, too, right? So he had no risk whatsoever of sending them to Ugnaughts because he knows how Ugnaughts are.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, you're right. I don't think he was anticipating that they would get anywhere with the Ugnaughts. So dead end for as far as he was concerned.
And those were some of my favorite scenes of this episode, by the way. Between Din Djarin and the Ugnaughts and getting Kuiil, like giving some Kuiil love. I was like, yes, thank you.
Yep, and it was cool and there was also we didn't really talk about this yet, but there were moments where Bo-Katan was stronger than Din, and Din was stronger than her, and I think they're learning from each other, like how to negotiate, how to talk to and speak to different people.
How to be a couple.
How to be a couple. Yeah. That's at the end of the day, that's really what it's about. But yeah, I mean, she comes in and she's like, oh, I'm the princess and I'm Bo-Katan, almost on a high horse walking in there, and the Ugnaughts don't even respond to her. Like they're
zero cares. Yeah.
They don't care. Right. But yeah, he's smarter about it. He goes in, says, talks about how, he evokes Kuir's name. He ends with, I have spoken. I mean, that had to open their eyes and their nostrils, right? They were suddenly excited in hearing somebody that says that or speaks the way they did. The only thing that I felt too was kind of like I wouldn't say I call it a miss, but I was hoping, like I really wanted one of them to go, whatever became of Kuir. Like, how did you know him? Like, and give Mando that time to sit there and talk about that and maybe omit the part of, he died like a chump, but he just
died protecting a small child.
No, I'm just I was making a joke, but yeah, no, I mean, I wish they would have asked him. Like I wanted Mando to have that time to really speak to how much Kuir meant to him. I mean, we all know it, I think, right? But
Kuiil, my friend,
Kuiil. It was an L, not an R. Kuiil. It was good. I wanted him to kind of speak to his relationship with him.
But I love that they just stopped when he mentioned his name, that he was his friend, and they just all of a sudden paused and everybody looked up. So they could just tell how much power that name has, how much respect that individual character had. It was really nice to just have him have that moment where you get to see what the influence he's had over not only Din Djarin and, in his ethic and working to get out of the Empire, but now also in his own culture with his own people, and how maybe he inspired them to be able to own their own shops down here and do their own thing, not be in servitude of anybody else, and so, how closely integrated was it? There were questions I had from all of that, but none of those questions mattered. It was just fantastic to be able to see his influence and his impact on his culture in general.
Yeah. They get into a bit of a good cop, bad cop situation here too. If you think about it, the way he presents it and the way or approaches them versus how she approaches them, very different. And this is the stuff that he learned from Quill, right? Like he, plays up their legendary droid skills. He then plays up their work ethic, and how they're like the hardest working, beings. And I love that they by the way, Bryce Dallas Howard, like, say what you want about the writing, say what you want about the setting, but from a directing perspective, it was like another 10 for 10 for me. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll put that aside or just say that real quickly. But I love that she cut over to them and you could see that on their faces, like someone was acknowledging their hard work. And whether it's true or not, the fact that someone thinks that, right, is really what all that matters there.
Hey, if you ever want someone to do something for you, flattery is not a bad path to start down.
Yeah. I've gotten into a lot of bad situations that way. And then he goes into like, hey, we're just one of you guys, right? You guys are here to do your job. We're just here to do our job, kind of thing, getting down to their level. And then he says we are, after they kind of have their little conversation, they agree they're going to help them. He then ends it with, we're in your debt and, evokes the I have spoken kind of thing. So it was just a really good scene. I loved everything about it. I love the Ugnaughts way more than I ever loved them, prior to The Mandalorian, but seeing them as well. Now, someone also did post that the one that was speaking was Mark Hamill. I don't know if that's official yet or not. He's not credited. He's never credited for any of the roles that he ever does. But I saw at least 2 posts today where people were gushing over the fact that it was Mark Hamill. I don't know if they have insider information or what, but either way, I thought whoever was performing those Ugnaughts, I think did a really good job.
That would not be surprising because Mark Hamill has done kind of secret cameos before.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that idea. I like that. I hope that is true. That's cool.
Not outside the realm of possibilities here. Okay, so at that point, and so they get back into the little tube chute, right? And they're heading now over to the loading docks because this is where allegedly the next malfunctioning droid is going to happen. And where they're going through there, Mando's kind of explaining to her, like, here's what happened, right? You came across as insulting them. That's not going to really work with them. Like, he's basically explaining his approach and, how he had spent time with Ugnaughts and all that. The only thing I didn't like about this is I would have wanted to see Bo-Katan like nodding or just going like, okay, yeah, I get this, right? Maybe I did the wrong thing. I didn't approach it the right way. And if you look at her body language, she still seems like ticked off and annoyed that, they didn't listen to her, but they listened to him.
But again, I think it's more the situation as a whole. This isn't where she wants to be. She just wants to get through this, get it done. I know how to do this. This is, you're kind of a caveman with some of this stuff. So it's a little bit of arrogance in that regard. But I think some of it is I just want to get this done because we've got a job to do. And I'm getting nervous because I got to go talk to Axe and Casca and all these other people. And I really don't know what I'm going to do yet. And it's just weighing on her in the back of her mind because this is just a waste of time. Like, why are we hunting down, a droid revolution or something like that? I don't care,
You just described Bo-Katan. No, I know. And see, so no, that's a good point. And I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Like, I don't know that if she's going to go reunite all these groups, then it's stuff like this, the art of negotiation that I want her to learn. I want her to change. I don't want her to be like this. That's exactly what I'm saying. Like, she's going to have to grow beyond that more. I mean, because I don't know that it's going to be just enough that she has a Darksaber and just enough that she has a Mythosaur. I think there are other clans out there that are going to be like, okay, yeah, cool. But, you still got it. You have to win us over. And I guess that's all I'm saying. Well, and even if beyond that, right, even beyond the Mandalorians, if they go into like interplanetary negotiations and all that stuff, she wants to be the true leader of Mandalore. If for her, it is more than just ruling the planet. This isn't 20,000 years ago. There's a whole galaxy out there and other civilizations. So what is that, the diplomacy of it all look like? And she's going to have the skills that Din's displaying, and especially in moments like this, for her to be a true leader beyond Mandalore, right?
I agree with that. But I think also you have to consider Mandalorians value strength. And the position that they're in right now, especially what she knows she has to go do, she has to show strength because it is not going to be a negotiation. It is going to be a contest. And again, some of it's, I think, frame of mind. I think she's totally capable of this. We've seen it already, right? We've seen her willing to jump in, lead by example, really positive traits, right? Negotiation, maybe I'm with you. She needs to show some stronger abilities in some of that. But I think for what the Mandalorians need and what they want right now, that's the frame of mind she's in. And I think she's got her ego is kind of going a little bit in overdrive here, but I think her nerves and everything else is going with it is contributing to it, because she's just she's got like this adrenaline building because she knows she's got to go do this later. And I think some of it's just coming out, and she doesn't have that kind of that emotional intelligence type, style of things quite yet to be able to curb some of that, knowing what she needs to come later in order to quote the Jedi, kind of more, Qui-Gon, like live more in the moment and figure this out right now, rather than continuing to think about it in the head, trying to rush through everything you have. Live for the here and now. Let's solve this problem, then we'll get to the next problem.
Okay, I can buy that, especially when we get to when they're finally heading off there to go see Axe and Casca. Like I can see you can see the visible stress on her face, like the anxiety, the stress that she's probably been carrying this entire time, knowing that eventually this time was coming and it finally is here.
And she still doesn't really know what to do.
And still doesn't know what to do. Oh, yeah, I can buy that. That maybe this was maybe out of character just a little bit, but she had other things that she was thinking about. So
I think it was just a more raw version of her, where she's at in that moment. And that she's not allowing that polish to come through either. I think it's there, but she's just not able to exude it in this moment, and probably doesn't care to either.
Gary says, but aren't they emphasizing they together are the Mandalorian that they need? So yeah, I like that idea too, that they do complement each other. That would presumably mean that they would rule together, and that would be the story, for season 5, 6, 7, whatever. But I don't know. We'll cross that bridge when we get there or burn it down. Okay, so let's talk about they get to the docks, and this is where we get the B-1 droid saying the famous line, "Show me your identification." Is fully expecting Qui-Gon to say, "You don't need to see his identification." And then Mando just like randomly starts kicking these droids around, which I don't know if it felt uncharacteristic of him. Maybe not. Surely it was coincidental, or the will of the Force that he just happened to kick the one battle droid, the B-2 droid that was going to malfunction. But whatever.
Well, no, he kicked a bunch of them over though.
Yeah, he kicked like 3.
That's
and then the 4th one worked.
Only an hour-long episode, man. They got to make some progress here.
It would have been 20 minutes of Mando just kicking droids over.
Well, it's like that 6-year-old in the toy store that just goes around starting knocking stuff off the shelves. You're like, just stop it. Just stop
where's your
it.
parents?
Where are your parents at? Where's your person?
Yeah. So and then
she was looking at him like a mother would, like for a disappointed child. Like, stop it.
Stop it. Yeah, that's how Bo was acting. But yeah, nonetheless, he finds that one. That one punches back, literally punches back, punches him, and then runs off. There was
it was really weird to see a B-2 super battle droid run like a person.
Well, it did more than that. Like when it and again, I'm not criticizing, because it's like, in my opinion, what we saw was probably the limitations of the tech maybe at the time. No, that's not true. I mean, they purposely designed that B-2 in episode 1 to kind of be robotic and clunky in its movements.
Lumbering, very rigid, and just hunk of metal, really seated. You couldn't move it, right?
Yeah,
this one was
we got a very
agile.
different take on this one, and then especially the one like I get the running part. In retrospect now, I see it. Didn't bother me at the time. The one that stood out for me though, that was kind of like whoa, is when they picked up that pole or whatever it was. The way the B-2 bent down and grabbed it and picked it up. It was a very fluid motion. There was nothing clunky about it. It seemed very humanistic in the way it did it.
And when it would run around a corner, it would lean, right? Droids don't typically lean, right? They typically kind of have to take a corner more of a sharp type of way, like you would think more in a militaristic type of way, but not lean around a corner to shift your body weight. I mean, of course, physics-wise, that makes that makes a lot of sense, but it just doesn't within the context of a gigantic, heavy battle droid, right? Especially what we've seen before. So it was a little distracting. I'm not gonna lie, it was a little distracting to see just the maneuverability and the capability of this super battle droid. But at some point, you're like, okay, well, it's been a number of years since this thing was developed. Maybe they've done other things to help them with their agility. But again, even when Din Djarin was kicking out their knees and stuff like that, they were still being a bit more fluid than I think we would have normally equated within really any kind of droid that size.
Yeah. It's fine. I mean, like you could write it off as the Ugnaughts and or Bombardier enhanced them in some way, or they're different makes, although the same model, different makes, and the makes got better. I don't know. There's ways to write that off, but
it's the C class, not the A class.
Yeah, exactly. But it was a little different to kind of see them do that. This is where we get into kind of a homage to Blade Runner. There's a scene in Blade Runner where one of the replicants starts running through the streets and they're chasing it and it crashes through a window, similar with Mando crashing through the window. So I don't know if it was specifically filmed that way or if it specifically was an homage. I'm just referencing that there's a lot of similarities between this whole chase scene that happens.
Right.
And we already talked about it, but if you get a chance, go back and pause it. There's so many cool droids, so many cool characters, costumes, the volume in the background. I think she did a really good job of filming this especially the way it was edited all together. It did give you kind of the sense that this was a very large planet, a very busy planet, similar in the vein of Blade Runner kind of style, right? Not necessarily post-apocalyptic, but definitely had a lot of different characters and just a lot of life to the city.
What'd you think about the morgue, like the autopsy of the battle droid?
It was interesting.
It was just strange. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, before we get there though, like I had a question. I was scratching my head, like, what's a spark pad?
Oh, it's supposed to be like a matchbook.
Well, I found that. I realized that afterwards when it first did, I was like, a spark pad. I mean, this is on first watch. I'm thinking, what the heck? What is that? Why do I not know this? Because they made it sound like she's like, oh, they've got a spark pad. Like it was so obvious. And I'm thinking, why have we never heard this before? And then she's like, it's got an address on it. And I'm like, what? An address? Like I was thinking more, not a physical address. It wasn't until they get to the bar. He's got the whole box there. And if you've ever been to a bar and they've got that box of matches that are there, I mean, it was like right out of that. So there you go. Showing your age because nobody uses matches these days.
Right.
I thought the Resistor was a cool name, kind of a swanky droid bar name, if there ever was a droid bar name.
Right.
And then the whole, let's talk about just quickly about the bar scene because this happens before I think we get to the autopsy, but them walking in, I mean, I like that it was the inverse of the Tatooine bar, right? Would have been too cheesy to have somebody say, we don't serve your kind here.
I thought about it. I was like, are they going to do it? It probably would have been a little too on the nose, especially with the droids. They were probably just more surprised that why would a humanoid come in here? Why would a fleshy, walk through the doors? They don't want to be with us at all.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody's ever walked in through that door.
Right.
But it didn't
sound like they were exactly against them being there. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were a little resistant at first, but then all of a sudden the story came out, which was like, oh, wow, we just won a second chance. It's like, okay, I'm so sorry.
And I love that Bo-Katan's like, okay, look, let me handle this one. You don't need to do violence. Just, there's more to, you can't go around just beating people up and stuff like that.
Well,
and then what
beating
does he do?
Droids and pulling them apart. Yeah.
Yeah. The very first thing, he does exactly what she told him not to do. And he, pulls out that little, electric razor blade, whatever that was, shaver, and says that he's going to like tear them apart and cut them up or whatever it was. So again, good dynamic between the two that they're still kind of learning from each other as a married couple would.
Or he's just showing off, trying to be impressive.
There you go.
Finds him impressive.
Take that angle.
It's the whole courtship angle. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did like the bartender droid though. Like he really did. You mentioned it earlier, I think in the opening comments, but you did feel for him and like he felt he seemed very sincere and genuine about like we don't want to be decommissioned, but at the same time, we owe a lot to the humans because they've given us a second life and knowing that.
I was not prepared for that statement at all.
Yeah.
I would never have even remotely considered that perspective.
Or the fact that all the other droids suddenly like clapped, right? And like honoring humans, like right, slow golf claps happening there for us. I'm like, okay, cool. We are the good people, I guess, as humans in another galaxy far, far away. Not me.
Well, it's a symbiotic relationship, right?
Yeah. Okay. So here's the, all right. So we get to the autopsy finally, right? Okay. This is where I like tune out. Like, I don't even care. Like I have like, even in my notes, I don't know that it makes sense to me. Like I couldn't understand what was going on. I finally just gave up and said, whatever, dude, wherever we're going, let's just go. I'm not going to sit here and try to make sense of it because they were getting into like, what was it? Nepenthe or
Nepenthe? Yeah.
Nepenthe. Right. They were talking about chain codes at one point. Nano droids were in the streams. It was back, talking about subparticles that were in the nano droids and the subparticles, and Techno Union got evoked here at some point. And
like
all I took away from this was that Hellgate was responsible for it.
Right. Yeah. It was like NCIS, like where they're in the forensic lab. and they just say all these things that don't make sense, but it's like, oh wow, okay, definitely we are smart, and there's a okay, that's where we need to go. There's the smoking gun.
Yeah, and I'm fine with it. Like I'm totally cool. I'm not going to sweat it.
Hey, they got there. It was not really all that far-fetched how they got there. I mean, you could kind of see you could see the line of how it got there, of why it would still be tied back to Hellgate, and why they would make that jump. So, hey, it worked. It got us to where we needed to be.
Yeah. And then, oh, by the way, the Nepenthe was a viscous lubricant that protects against mechanical wear while delivering program refreshing subparticles. Cool story, bro. I don't know what else to say about that. I mean, it was Star Wars science at its finest, or maybe its worst. You make the decision, but nonetheless, all roads point to Hellgate as being the person that was responsible, because it traced back to the Techno Union, and that was enough. So
it was basically like the equivalent of Droid Spa Day.
Yeah. Michael Scott had a comment. I'm not going to put it up there because it's not appropriate, probably, but I did laugh because, that was not uncharacteristic of Lizzo to do something like that. So good for her. Maybe she's moved past all of that. I don't know. But we get to so we get finally back. So we finally get all the way back to Hellgate. They walk in, and he reveals that, okay, it's not a failsafe. He hits the button. They all go back to being, attack droids, and society falls apart, and they kill everybody, basically, is what it was. It's not so much that humans would have to fend for themselves, is that they would be killed by the droids that have been rehabbed.
You get a little tired of that thing. If this can't be the way I want it to be, I will just burn everything to the ground. Like this real super extremist way of doing things. I mean, does that ever wear a little bit on you? Like everything's going pretty well, and you put the Duchess up on this pedestal. You really just think that she's the most amazing thing on the planet, and to guarantee her affections, I will destroy everything that we have.
I don't know, man. Love does weird things to you.
Right.
Okay, that's what he said.
Right,
if anyone didn't catch that. Okay, so he goes into this whole spiel about, he starts, goes into a whole soliloquy here. He goes and talks about the corrupt Republic didn't change him. The Empire, he didn't give up on the Empire, or he didn't give up because of the Empire, didn't give up because of the Republic. We turns out to be a separatist. He says Count Dooku was a visionary. Okay, whatever. And then before he says, and had it not been for that Jedi enforcer, I was like, say his name, you son of a, Anakin Skywalker. And then they stun him, which I felt was appropriate. Like what was, he had no out. Like, there was a terrible situation for him, but
I like it. Old. That's where Bo-Katan's line is. It's politics. She just doesn't care.
Right. She doesn't care. She was,
he lost me at politics. Like, I'm done with this.
Whatever, dude. Just shut up. We're not talking about this. Right. You're down.
That was my sister's bag, not mine.
Yeah. So, okay. And then we cut back over to the Pillbug Battle Ball, whatever game that they were playing there. And we get to see Grogu helping her using the Force.
Yeah,
what?
Cheating. That's all you have to do to be knighted. You just have to cheat.
That's true. It worked
Good
for
life
Qui-Gon.
lessons there, Grogu.
I'm kidding. Qui-Gon didn't cheat because Watto was already cheating with a chance cube.
2 wrongs make a right, I suppose.
Yeah. That's
what I've always heard.
Yep. Well, that's how Qui-Gon rolls, though. I mean, it's
how the will of the Force rolls, apparently.
Exactly. Okay, so they bring Hellgate to the Duchess, and we get to this whole thing about, with the wise and all that, and she's ashamed, and so they got into that whole thing about the Quacta calling the stifling slimy again. This is all the Cad Bane thing that was done in Book of Boba Fett. Yeah, but I did love that.
I imagine it took Christopher Lloyd like 17 tries to get this out.
Get it out, all right, yeah. Who was it that said, "I beg your pardon"? Was that Jack Black that said that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I just like the fact that it was so offensive, and now it, I don't know, maybe it gives more meaning to the way Cad Bane said it when he delivered it then. But yeah, so this is where I felt like, okay, so I felt like, again, I'm not going to say he's got a redemption story, but he says, "I'm sorry I've disappointed you, milady. Maybe someday I can earn such forgiveness from your grace." Again, they don't write this stuff unless they're going to someday give him an opportunity to fall into her good graces. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. In Star Wars, television, cartoons, stuff like that.
I wish we would make a list of all of the times we've said this, just to see how many of them actually come true.
Yeah.
Ever.
Well, it happens. I mean, again,
I know it happens. It definitely happens.
It happens in like Rebels and Clone Wars and stuff like that. So I guess what I'm saying is there's a precedence that's been set.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah. So maybe it's foreshadowing, maybe it's not. He gets exiled to the moon of Paraquat.
If they tell you, at some point, you got to believe them, right?
Yeah.
Because they keep telling us and they keep doing it.
So Paraquat, maybe that's a moon we go to at some point. We'll see. And of course, they now get to go see Axe and Casca and all that. They're also, by the way, they're given the key to the city. If that's not a trope. Key. Well, they're always big keys. But this is like right out of a video game.
Right, they just had a readily available. Yeah, it was like Princess Zelda or something like that, or a Princess Peach. It was just funny.
And then we get the knighting. So she knights him a knight of the Ancient Order of Independent Regencies, which seems made up, but
with a real sword too, like an actual sword.
An actual sword, yeah, that was kind of cool.
Ancient regent, that's for sure.
She says, "Until our paths meet again." Grogu, I think Grogu said bye. Like it sounded like he said bye to her. Maybe not. But yeah, I loved him when he's got looking back over Dad's shoulders or walking away, and he's got his little hand waving, smiling. He's at the time of his life here, so maybe he's got a friend there now.
Well, and she was like petting his head at one point and scratching his head,
like scratching like a cat.
And he was purring.
Mm-hmm.
He was actually purring.
Yep. Oh, sorry. Rob said I was waiting for that, and I would have gotten away with it had it not been for these meddling kids. Yeah,
True.
we were only that's what we were missing with Christopher Lloyd's character is the removal of the mask and seeing that it was Jar Jar or something underneath there.
Actually, I think it probably would have been Christopher Lloyd under the mask, but that's usually kind of what it looks like.
Right. Yeah. Same person. He would be the one. Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right. Let's talk about the reunion. So we talked about them kind of, she's got a lot of anxiety that they're finally going to do it. She's kind of going to make a call, last minute decision about how she, approaches them or whatever. Yeah, but she basically says, look, that's her fleet. She wants it. Axe is like, no, I'm kind of fond of it. This is mine now. And so she challenges him. Now, the whole action sequence I thought was pretty good. Like, I really enjoyed it. I liked the way it was cut. There were some really good moments. I love the fact that Bo-Katan, throughout this episode, especially, she made use of her jetpack in a lot of different ways. More than I think Din Djarin and some of the other Mandos. And so I don't know, that's just a skill thing or whatever. But there was one part in there where when Axe, I think, punches her and they're falling off the gauntlet ship, and then she like uses the cable to hit him before she lands and like pulls him off. I mean, there was just really cool uses of their, and we got to see everything. We got to see the flamethrower, we got to see the shield, they had knives. I mean, the only thing that didn't come out was the Darksaber, which of course wouldn't because she didn't have it, but I enjoyed the fight. I thought it was pretty good.
And I'm glad you said that the way that they cut this, it kept it exciting, it kept it moving, it kept it energetic. Mm-hmm. And you're right, just the action of it, of being able to see the jetpacks in play all the time. It was like you would expect two Mandalorians who were actually fighting to fight. And it felt like it was because it was very, very real. And this was a fight to potentially to the death. Now, would he have given her the same quarter that she gave him? Honestly, I don't know.
I don't know either. Maybe. Like there were moments in there where it looked like had she not ducked, like she would have lost her head. And it did look like there were moments when she was pulling punches or maybe not going for the death kill. I mean, there was twice where she had him basically pinned down, asking him to, surrender or give up. So,
and I like that first time when she gave him the opportunity, he's like, what? And, it just took off. But you're right. When they were, when it became more of a 4D type of space, right? When we're 3-dimensional, where they're up on top of ships, they're getting, they're in the air, they're using the zip lines and bringing each other off of it with the ripcords, whatever they're called. Sorry, that always escapes my brain, whatever it is. But just being able to do that and using every tool in the trade that they more or less had, that feels like a Mandalorian fight. So it was just fantastic to be able to watch that, and everybody just kind of watching, staying out of the way. Right? When it gets serious, and you can see Din getting a little tense. Nope, this is how we resolve things. You had a challenge, you see it through the end until one of you yields or one of you loses a finger, I guess.
Yeah. Or a head. Rob says, well, he led with a rocket grenade. That's true.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
That was a party grenade, though. It just like confetti shot out. You just didn't see it happen. He wasn't really trying to go for like a kill or anything. So, okay. So yeah, she finally subdues him, and he basically surrenders, but then he kind of throws in her face like, you won't even take that Darksaber away from your boyfriend. Or did he say boyfriend? I could have sworn he said boyfriend, but maybe not.
I'm pretty sure that's what he meant. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he meant. which is, true in a lot of ways. And she starts evoking this whole thing of and she goes into her speech, right? Mandalorians are stronger together. This is what she's basically saying, what I think Din Djarin said a couple episodes ago.
Right.
And then Axe makes that comment about how Mando doesn't even have blood in his veins, that, as a true Mandalorian. And this is I'm glad they brought this back up, because it's been a while since we talked about this. The identity of what a Mandalorian is. It seemed pretty prevalent in season 1, I think, more than season 2. Maybe it was season 2. No, it was season 2, because that's when we met the Night Owls for the first time, and they were giving a bunch of crap to Boba Fett and all that, right?
Right.
But either way, this is kind of one of those themes that I'm glad they came back to, because I think it is going to be, a redefining kind of thing for the Mandalorians. Is like, it's part of the identity. It's not, like we said, it's the creed more than it is about your blood or where you were born or any of that stuff.
Yeah, the idea that you're only Mandalorian if you come from a house of Mandalorians. The way the Children of the Watch do it with the foundlings is almost more. You would think that would be more important to a culture like the Mandalorians, especially in the state that they're in right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it also tells you, like, as dogmatic as the Children of the Watch are with the way and things like that, they still have a very firm and very clear value and culture, system that they follow that is good, and it's the right thing to do, right? You see a stray, especially if you took their parent in combat or something happened. You take them in and you make them as one of your own, because you don't leave those types of people behind, or you don't leave those things behind, or those beings or those creatures, like we saw with the dragons, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the other ones seem a little more flexible with some of the rules of what it is to be Mandalorian, because they take a lot of that for granted, because this is what they were born with. This is their lineage. This is their house. This is their history, their heritage, and that they rely almost solely on that to help define them as Mandalorians. It's a nice dichotomy between the two, but it also just shows you, the conflict that'll bring between the two, tribes or clans or however you want to view that, but also why that can work so well together as well. And they can find a way, if the purebloods can accept those in exile or I guess it's the other way around, but if they could accept the Children of the Watch, that's almost like accepting a foundling into their care. So they would have taken a major step. And then if the Children of the Watch can accept someone who takes off their helmet, then again, that tolerance and that being able to accept that there are different ways of thinking beyond the way, and we can follow a general way in some ways. They've got to clarify what the way truly means, though, to the armor. And what her end result or what her end game is here, because I think there is some confusion here about what it is that she actually wants to achieve. And this is where kind of the questions I had earlier in the episode was, does she really want everybody to just adopt the way again? Like, we all need to commit to the way, but we've got to do it all first. Let's get them all here, and then we'll figure that out, and we'll find a way to move forward. But it's going to be my rules. Or is she really going to loosen and flex that and rely on a Bo-Katan, or is she just relying on Bo-Katan just to bring them here, and then she'll figure it out as the armor?
That's a good question, because even what the way Bo presents this, right after after Axe makes that comment about he doesn't have Mando blood in him. I mean, she basically says, "Look, don't talk to my boyfriend that way." I think that's what she said, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's my man.
That's my man. Yeah, that's what she said. But then she goes and talks about how, he took the creed, right? He chose to walk the way, just as our ancestors did. So, and this is where I started to question, like, okay, so is she come around to the idea that the way is the way, right? Because that seems a pretty big step for her. And it's fine if she did, but I think this is what you were kind of hitting at. Like, what is the way now? Like, is she trying to get everybody on board and get them following the Children of the Watch? Or would it be more like we thought, more how we theorized that it would be some kind of a balance, right? Of old ways and new ways, or just a modern way, an approach to what it means to be or to follow the way. Hopefully they wrap this up where they get to the bottom of this, because I'm with you. Like, it does, when she was talking about this stuff, I'm like, well, where does she stand on this, right? I mean, at the end, she kind of puts a good bow on it. See what I did there?
Yeah, I see.
She puts a good bow on it at the very end, because she says he's every bit the Mando that we are, that, saying that he's his equal, right? So I think that's the message, the overall message, but she was getting into some territory about almost like defending him and saying like that was the best way. Not I'm not using it the way proper, but that was the best way to go about being a Mandalorian. I don't know. I need her to clarify some of that stuff for me.
Well, I think with Bo-Katan, I have fewer questions than I do the armor, because I think with Bo-Katan, the way I viewed her bringing the ancient ways is like, look, we all celebrate the ancient ways. Why would we treat this group of people that adhere to that more strictly than we do? They walk that way because that's what we've always taught. That's what we learned as kids. We had these same experiences growing up. We bathed in the waters and we read the creed. Now we kind of giggled about it and chastised it in some ways and took it for granted. This was a way of life for them. But we all did it. We all took it. Our lines come from the same line in some level. And so I think some of that was her bridging those two worlds of saying, look, here's our commonality. We're not that different. We've definitely gone in different directions, but we all have a same origin story of some sorts, right? We all have that single source of truth from the past, from our ancient ways. We all believe in the Mandalore, the teachings of the Mandalore. Those are the things we can wrap ourselves around. I think that's where the armor though comes in, because I think Bo-Katan is more flexible with what that actually looks like in today's terms. Helmet on, helmet off, don't really care, blah blah blah. I'm concerned about what the armor's perspective of that is, of whether she is going to have expectations of what that means, so that we define the way. And so is she going to help redefine the way, or is she going to say, no, this is still the way? You all have an opportunity. that type of response and that reaction. So I'm really curious to see how it goes. If Bo-Katan is really going to lead it, it's going to have to be that more open-minded approach, which again is a lot of irony considering how the rest of this episode went, for her to have these moments here where she's very flexible and very, very inclusive, rather than kind of bull in a china shop.
So where does that leave like Boba Fett and Cobb Vanth?
Well, Cobb Vanth's not a Mandalorian, first of all. Never has been, never will be.
Hold on. So time out. I get that. That's what I'm saying though. Like that doesn't, I mean, it doesn't align with the theory, at least my theory. And I guess that's where I'm going and trying to defend. It's like, I was hoping that it would be kind of like, hey, anybody can be a Mandalorian as long as you adopt the creed. But I guess what I heard you saying is it's about more adhere, because they went through the old traditions and all that they're Mandalorian.
No, I'm sorry. No, what I'm trying to say is that's how she's unifying them. That's how she's getting the children of the Watch and her clan they all believe in the ways of the past. Like they all kind of came from the same place. So they hate each other for their ways of interpreting it. Doesn't matter. They still all kind of believe in an overall, they believe in the overall Mandalore story, right? They all learn it. It's all a part of them, and they feel connected to it. I don't think that changes anything with a foundling or anybody that they would adopt into the Mandalorian culture, anything like that. So I think that's all a bit different.
Yeah.
With Boba Fett and with Jango Fett, I think from some respect, that's a choice that Boba has to make about whether that's anything that he actually wants. So I think whether they would accept him or not, I think is again that commitment. And I do agree with you at a point. Are you going to take the creed? Are you going to commit to being a Mandalorian? I just don't know what that commitment means right now, or what that actually looks like. What is the commitment besides reciting the creed? Is it a helmet? Is it more than that? Is it something differently and different entirely? But no, my point was she was just bringing things together based on their common history.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
Yeah, of what they believed, just more, religiously almost, right?
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because honestly, the way I think we've talked about it, the analogy that we've used in the past on one of the mini shows we've done was that this was very similar to Christianity, right? Christianity is the way, if you want to look at it that way. And then you can choose to come into Christianity, and all you technically need to do, I hate to oversimplify this, right? But all you technically need to do is be baptized, right? That goes back to John the Baptist and the teachings of Jesus Christ. As long as you get baptized, you're a Christian. Now, you may join any number of crazy number of religions, not crazy religions. Don't join the crazy religions, but there are a number of crazy amounts of religions out there that are all Christian based, but they have all their different ways of, the dogma and beliefs and all that stuff. So it's very similar in that regard. And so to go back to what I was really kind of worrying about was losing somebody like Boba Fett or Cobb Vanth. Like, wouldn't it be something for both of them to visit like Mandalore and then go into the waters and then come out of the waters? And to me, it feels like that's all they would really need to do to, at a very basic level, to be considered a Mandalorian, right? Because they followed away, and so long as they take their helmet off, maybe they don't. Maybe that's something that she's a little bit more lax on now at this point. That might be enough for them to be considered Mandalorians.
I agree with you. I think it starts probably with bathing in the waters or reciting the creed. You know, that this is your commitment, right? We are erasing, we are washing away the sins of your past. You are getting a blank slate. And this is your reaffirmation. This is your affirmation, your confirmation that you are now walking, for lack of a better word, the way, you know, but you are walking in this new direction as a new spiritually cleansed person. And it's just a matter of what are the rules with that. I mean, but I agree with you. Like going in the bathing and doing the reciting, those seem like givens, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone's done it at some point and they all kind of believe it on some level. So it just makes sense that, okay, we can all get behind that. It's a fresh start. Let's just view it like a fresh start.
Right. It's a commonality amongst
Plus,
us.
there's a big dinosaur down there.
Yeah.
You'll want to see it.
Okay, so we kind of belabored a lot of that, so I apologize. But it was a good conversation, I felt, if I do say so myself. Okay, so this is where we get to the technicality, right? This belongs to you. You know, I was down, bested by a beast, and then she bested that beast. So technically, shouldn't she, you know, have this? And he goes and asks all of them like twice, right? Is she?
I mean, if they believe it, then I guess it counts. I guess. I'm curious if the armor views it that way. I mean, if they come back to the story and tell the armor, she'd be like, no, that isn't really how that works. But okay, well, you have your helmet off, so what do I know?
we got to remember too. Like, put this in the context of the Darksaber. Like, the Darksaber was created thousands of years ago, right? And then it disappeared. The Jedi took it. Mandalorians got it back. And then somewhere it disappeared. And we still don't know that because it ends up on, what do you call it? Night Sister's home planet, Dathomir.
Dathomir, yeah.
Right? So it ends up on Dathomir. And we don't know how much time passed in that. So, like, I don't know that there's anything that's written down, like the bylaws, or there's like something that says, that, you know, this technicality wouldn't work. To me, it just feels like it's just kind of like, hey, if they agree to it, then that's enough. And they go by. I mean, what are they? I mean, there's, again, I guess what I'm saying is there's nothing they're going back to and saying, oh, it says right here in provision 13 of chapter 2 that, you know, this technicality would, you know, go against the bylaws. So.
Right. And again, if you want to get really specific, what Din Djarin said was not true. You know, it was like a certain point of view thing again. I kept waiting for him to say that part, actually, was just followed up with, you know, from a certain point of view. Because remember what happened. So he's captured. The thing just plucks it from his belt and throws it in the dirt. She's fighting the beast already. So she hasn't beaten the beast. She picks up the Darksaber and kills the thing with the Darksaber, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So not really how things happen that Din lays it out there. I mean, he rescued her with it, but she didn't defeat the creature, you know, that using, like, the creature is using the dark, or just in battle anyway, without using the Darksaber, I guess is that a technicality? To me, that seems like that's probably the intent, is that you are beating somebody without using the weapon that you're trying to earn back.
Yeah.
You know, that part seems like we have really fudged it and we've shoehorned the story in. Again, I'm not saying the writers are doing this to escape a thing. I think this is very much Din Djarin finding a way and seeing it out, and they took it, and Bo-Katan's probably like, this, all right, I'm in, you know, type of thing. Because if everyone's going to buy in, then why not? But again, it doesn't feel a whole lot different than Rebels on some level. Not entirely the same, of course, but on some level, it's did you beat someone in combat to get it? Like Din Djarin did with Moff Gideon? No.
I think also, given what Bo-Katan went through after the Darksaber, like, in my head, I think she does believe that, okay, because I didn't earn it, maybe that was, I won't go so far as to say she felt like it was a curse, but I feel like if she really was hesitant about this or didn't feel comfortable even with the technicality, she probably would have said something.
Yeah.
Because he had other opportunities to take it, and you know, and you know, there was that whole time when Gideon was like, "Oh, he can't just give it to you." Like, she got it. She understood, like, that's not a way to earn it, but she did accept it here. So maybe in her head, and maybe the fact that her people were accepting of it, and that was kind of a huge obstacle. And once she got past that, then getting people to rally around the idea that she is truly the Mandalorian or she earned it, then maybe that becomes easier for her. I don't know, but I think she's okay with it. Again, my final takeaway on this is like, I don't even care at this point. Like, I get it was a big deal at the time, and I know we've belabored all these possible ideas, and I was even wondering like how is this ever going to get out of her hands? Like, Din Djarin never seemed to me like he was ever going to fight her for it. And I know there was earlier on, before the season started, that people were thinking, well, she was kind of like the antagonist. She was, trying to play him, doing the long game. At some point they would have a legitimate fight, and he would, she would earn it back or whatever. I just couldn't get on board with all of that. But at the same time, like, I really struggled with how was this ever going to switch hands? Because it felt like it was going to have to go to somebody first, and then that person would have to be bested by Bo-Katan, and so that she would earn it back. What I wasn't anticipating was that we had already seen that battle, and that would be enough, given that there were no spectators, no witnesses to the event. It just kind of all happened in a vacuum, and it's just their word. So I guess what I'm saying is it happened, and I'm fine with it, and I don't want to think about it anymore, because I really want to get to the point of like, let's freaking go to Mandalore. Like, this is like 2 episodes left, and we're still not on Mandalore, with the exception of the 2 scenes that we had earlier a couple episodes ago.
So when you think about this episode and the things that we did, knowing that we have 2 left, this feels like Bad Batch again, right? Like we have this episode where we've got 2 left. It feels like there's a lot of things they need to tell us still, or that we probably want to know. We don't know all the things we want to know quite yet, but we know there's certain things that we want to see. We want to understand Mandalore. What does it take that's going to get back there? They really do. These are really dense episodes at times, so they can do a lot with their time. So I'm not necessarily concerned or anything like that. But when you have an episode like this that was very, noir inspired and very off the beaten track, that trail, if you will, does that give you any concern about the last couple of episodes, or does it feel like, okay, maybe this didn't quite hit the mark of, like, I like the episode. I'm not saying you didn't like that, but does it really fit going into the final 2, for the season? Does any of that rub you a little bit wrong, or you're like, no, I feel like it's kind of cleansed my palate a little bit. I'm good to go. Now I'm primed and ready to go. Like, how's your take on that overall when you take a step back and look at it?
Okay, well, one, the length of the episodes is always what always helps me get comfortable with what there's left to be told in my head, right?
Okay.
So if these are like 25, 30-minute episodes, then okay, maybe I'm a little concerned, and only from the perspective of I still don't really like it felt like last episode we kind of had a clear path. We're going to Mandalore in this next episode, and we didn't do that. I'm like, oh, okay. Right. So I felt like I knew we were going to go. And if we get to the final 2 episodes and it becomes very clear and very apparent about what this season was truly about, because we still don't have Moff Gideon, right? We still haven't gotten to Mandalore. We still don't have Fen Rao. I'm kidding. But no, between those 2, right? We're still not Mandalore. We still don't have Moff Gideon. They've not explained the Imperial presence. We've slightly touched on the cloning piece. Right. Grogu's background was kind of put aside. So I guess there are some things that are concerning with 2 episodes left. I think the one thing that gives me hope is that the last 2 episodes are Rick Famuyiwa, he directed both of these. You've got Jon Favreau. Dave Filoni is the writer, along with Jon Favreau on this next episode. And the final episode is going to be just Jon Favreau all by himself. So that for me is like, it is kind of like a powerhouse, because Rick is also an executive producer this year. Right. We may have talked about that at the very beginning. But he's like all in on this series. Like, this is his baby, and he's putting everything he's got into it, which is great, because I think we all loved what he did in season 1 and season 2. So I feel like we're going to have some bangers of episodes, these last 2 episodes. The amount of time is the only piece that I'm worried about. If we get a 45-minute for both, that's probably enough time to at least feel like we made significant progress in either the reclamation of Mandalore, or some kind of resolution with Moff Gideon, and understanding like what are we setting up for a season 4? Where is this going to go with Bo-Katan as a leader? Where's this going to go with Din Djarin and his future? Is he stick around as part of that? Does he go back to his ways of, being, running around the galaxy with Grogu, and we get the lone wolf and cub thing again that we kind of got away from season 1 and season 2? That's the part that's kind of weird for me. Or does all this kind of play into a larger narrative? And so, and it may be that the timing is such that we come out of Celebration here in the next 4 or 5 days, and it all makes sense. And we start anticipating that even though we didn't get everything we wanted, or at least we thought we were going to get or wanted in season 3, that they've hinted that the last 2 episodes in this season are kind of this touch point, this hub of all the bigger narrative that they're trying to tell with Ahsoka and Skeleton Crew and all that. I think that would be easier for me to judge this. I think I'd be okay with that and not feel like, oh, season 3 was a quote hot mess or it was all over the place, which I think is fair criticism, right? There's just an unknown. So I think that X factor of Celebration and knowing what the landscape is going to look like for the Dave Filoni / Jon Favreau universe would make me feel better, regardless of how much time are left in the last 2 episodes or what they can and cannot get to in those 2 episodes.
Yeah, I want to touch on that. Yeah, I want to touch on that last comment there in just a second. I think the other thing, though, to think about is that this episode that we got this week, I think when you think about what did it deliver, like what did we need something to be delivered this week? Did we resolve Bo-Katan claiming her old clan? We did check that box, right? So I think it's important that we note that we checked that box. Now, whether you spent the entire episode trying to accomplish that or you did in the last 5 minutes, we did check the box. So from an overall story, was it the entire episode that was driving that? Not necessarily, but we did get to the point, at least one thing resolved that we needed to have resolved. So we did do that. Could have we accomplished more, done it a little bit differently? Quite possibly, but that's what it was. We checked that box. Now, to your other point, though, with what Celebration is going to bring, are they going to give us hints of the bigger picture? I'm really starting to think the answer is no. And the reason why I say that is this past weekend, of course, there's been tons of conventions going on. And so there was an interview with Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, and they were talking about things. And Dave Filoni really wanted to say something. He's like, you know what? No, you just need to see it before we talk about anything. And I'm just wondering if it's these last 2 episodes. He keeps saying we have to see those. And Filoni might skirt, some of those. I just don't know if I'm being a little pessimistic now that if that was and maybe he was just buying time to get the Celebration, but now I'm just, the cynical side of me is coming out just a teeny bit of saying, well, maybe he really does want us to see the rest of the episodes before we talk about what that big event is. But then why would you waste Celebration not to share some big event if that's really on the horizon, right? Or if that's part of the roadmap, especially in the roadmap in the next 12 to 18 months, right? So that's something I'm a little bit unsure about at this point. And if anything, I'm skewing a little bit on the side of we're not going to get enough of that to feel really good about it. I'm hoping I'm very wrong. Skeleton Crew, I think, is totally different. I think that might feel standalone enough to where it won't matter. Like the stuff that we're seeing here on Mandalore is not necessarily a direct impact to any of that. There's just there's that connected tissue, but it's nothing really, not main story arcs or anything like that. Because we still got like the Carson Teva and the Elia Kane. I mean, there's other aspects of all of this stuff that's connected to Gideon and to maybe these other pieces of content too. That makes sense. Do we get anything else with with Zeb? Was that really just a cameo for fun, or is that leading to something else? So there's other things they can do at Celebration to take that without ruining the last couple of episodes or giving too much away, of what's going to happen on Mandalore. So they're not necessarily mutually exclusive in that way. Yeah, no, I agree. Like it would be stupid of them to spoil the last 2 episodes. And I don't think they'll go that far. Right. But if they do say, hey, we're building towards a larger story and it's not clear, and it probably won't be clear to us at that point, how they get there in the last 2 episodes or what, if anything, in the last 2 episodes even has any setup for that, it's probably already happened. Like it does feel like it does feel like the last 2 episodes, given where they've been, what they've talked about these first 6, that we are going to get something on Mandalore and we're going to get something with Gideon. And that to me feels like that's 2 episodes alone. And maybe they tease something at the very end or give you something to kind of build off of for the other stuff. Sure, that's fine. But I don't know. I think we're out of time. I can't see us doing a side mission like this at this point. It's just too late in the game. This is how we felt, like you said earlier. It's similar to the Bad Batch. Like we knew we were out of time, and those last 2 episodes were going to be heavy on Crosshair and the fate of the Bad Batch, and that's what we got.
sort of.
More or less, yeah.
More or
maybe,
less. Yeah.
Maybe less on that crosshair front, but yeah.
Yeah. Hey, he showed up.
He did show up.
The last 30 seconds.
Yeah, he was asleep the entire time, but whatever.
Yeah.
Lazy. The crosshair's lazy, not than anyone else. But no, I'm with you. I think if they do announce something bigger, like broader event, I'm with you. We've probably already seen it. We've probably already experienced what that's going to be. It doesn't have to necessarily have any kind of dependency on the last 2 episodes here from a Mandalorian standpoint. Like from the true like core Mandalorians, even Moff Gideon, they don't necessarily have to be related in that way for them to be connected. So yeah, fair point.
All right. Well, I still have It's About Damn Time in my head from Lizzo, but I don't have anything else.
So I have no idea what you're even considering. Do not send it to me.
Oh, you don't know that song?
No, I don't really listen to this.
You know, you're going to be in my home here in just a few days, and I'm sorry, my friend, you're not going to get away from it. It's going to be playing as you enter the house, so be prepared. But no, that's all I got. I mean, we answered all of our kind of follow-up questions or final questions here, and look at our counter now coming in. Come on. We're about to end, dude. But yeah, I think we answered just about everything, including what we hope to see in the last 2 episodes. So there you go. It's a show.
Yeah,
Segue into that.
Well, I mean, hey, we're coming up on 500 official numbered episodes here. Really, probably, it may not be next week, but the following weekend. So it's pretty crazy.
And you are on your, what is it? So I thought you would say something. You didn't, but this is, you did the math, and today was what, your was it 300th episode? 400?
When we do the Ahsoka episode for Celebration, that'll be my 300th Cantina Cast episode that we've done. That includes all of our bonus content. That includes all of our Patreon content. But 300, over 440 hours.
Oh, you did the math on it?
That's only up to 297 episodes so far. So, I mean, yeah. And I don't know if you knew that.
40 hours. How many days is that?
Oh, gosh. You'd have to do the math. Someone else can do the math.
Where's Dale? Somebody do the math on that.
It's
but
several,
no, congratulations. That's a lot
several weeks. It's a lot of episodes. Yeah.
That's a lot of time. Hope you're happy with your life there, buddy.
Well, I mean, yeah. And the thing is, in a couple more hours, I'll surpass the 2 episodes I was on in the basement. So we're getting close.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a big milestone if you can get past that.
Right. But a big milestone every week for us is when we do the live stream. We have all these amazing people come out and talk to us and give us so much great feedback. So thank you so much to Jonathan, Steph, obviously Subdued, Sky, Qui-Gon J, Riley, Derpy's Entertainment, Miss Sunflower, Gary, Juan. Good to see Juan. I know he means a lot to you as well. With the Deagle. Did I get that right? With the Deagle. Yeah. Dale, Lauren, Michael Scott, the great Michael Scott. And Rob and Hard Counter. Again, thank you everyone to come out. If you are listening to the show, thanks for downloading. If you'd like to go out and see our faces, join the chat, get your comments thrown up on screen, a little bit of that interaction. We would love to have you with us. CantinaCast.com/YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, all the things. Go check out all of Lauren's amazing content on the books. She's got something coming out pretty much every week. So you are not going to be disappointed. She's going to be with us on most, if not all of the shows this weekend. So you're going to get her perspective on all of us as well. So it's going to be amazing. And of course, when we get the publishing news and things like that, you're going to want to hear what she has to think and what she's thinking about that, how that's going to work in with what we've had from High Republic so far, Lydia Kang's new novel, and what that looks like as we start to think about phase 3 of the High Republic in particular.
Yep.
But I'm really curious about all the other novels, like the Shadow of the Sith type novels, those in between ones. I'm really curious from a publishing standpoint, what are those stories that we're going to get? Last with Celebration with Marvel, we had news of like The Blade and with Yoda, and those series delivered. So I'm excited about the opportunity of more of those other Marvel comic type of stories as well. So Hidden Empire was actually pretty good too. So yeah, so a lot of great content. Come see the 3 of us. Albert and I will be in the same sweaty gym locker of a room. Be fantastic. Yep. Crawling under desks just to get around, apparently.
Shh. You're not supposed to,
don't ruin the magic. Don't ruin the magic.
Don't ruin the magic.
Right.
Yeah, and just to kind of hit it a little bit harder here. So cantinacast.com/YouTube. If you go out there, all of our programming has already been scheduled. Thank you, Jonesy, for doing that. So all of the shows, we've got one show on Friday, which is going to be a recap of day 1. We've got 2 shows on Saturday, 2 shows on Sunday, and then we'll do a Monday recap show of the convention with some other specific panels as well. So again, if you go out there and subscribe to the channel, you will get notified of that. So please do so, and please join us. And if you can't join us for the live shows, just and you want our perspective on how things are rolling, tune into them a little bit later. We'd love to hear your feedback, and certainly, oh, look, he's got it up right now. And now it's blown up. Yeah. So there you go. That's kind of like the infographic that Jonesy put together with all of the shows. Let me get this out of the way here. So yeah, please join us on those shows. It's going to be quite a fun time talking about Celebration, even though we can't be there. So with that, hey, there you are. Okay, so we got, we're going to take a break. Normally we record on Thursdays, and we're not because we got it done tonight. We'll be back on Friday for that show, Friday night, 7 p.m. Central. And we'll both be in-house for that one along with Lauren. So hopefully we look forward to you joining us on that episode. And until then, as I find the outro, we'll see you guys.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.